Welcome to the Voice of Crime. I'm Martez, just your local neighborhood kid who loves Mitski and crime. Gruesome crime at that. Crime, for me, is fascinating. It is something that has fascinated me ever since I was 7 years old. Crime is a story of human psyche, a story of cardinal sins, juxtaposing to create a deadly symphony that befalls nothing but harm. A story of those who lost and those who were lost. Crime has existed for as long as humans have existed. It essentially, on a very simple scale, is a story about people. And as someone who has loved telling stories all their life, I wanted this project, this podcast, this Voice of Crime to bring to you these stories. Stories which will send shivers down your spine, yet fascinate you and bring you to terms of shock and awe that only good old-fashioned true crime can have. On the first episode, I wanted to bring to you the dark and twisted tale of the Bloody Benders, America's oldest and most sinister family of serial killers. So buckle up, because this is a story you don't want to miss. Welcome again to the Voice of Crime. To understand the horrifying story of the Bloody Benders, we first need to step back in time to the late 1800s, in the wild, untamed frontier of Kansas. Picture a vast expanse of prairies, dotted with small isolated settlements, and you've got the backdrop for our tale. After years of violence known as Bleeding Kansas, followed by the Civil War, the United States government moved the Osage Indians from the Labette County in southern Kansas to the new Indian Territory in what would later become Oklahoma. Typical Americans, eh? The vacated land was then made available to homesteaders, and so in 1870, 5 families of spiritualists settled in western Labette County, one of which were the Benders, comprised of John Bender Sr., his wife Elmira, son John Jr., and daughter Kate. The family soon built a small one-roomed framed cabin, a barn, and dug a well. Inside the wooden cabin, the area was partitioned with a large canvas, creating living quarters in the back and a small inn and store in the front. The front door that advertised groceries to the many travelers along the trail sold powder, groceries, liquor, and tobacco, sold meals, and provided a safe overnight resting place to strangers along the road. The Benders were of German descent. John Sr., 60, and Elvira, 55, spoke little English and were unfriendly. John Bender Jr. was around 25 years old and handsome, with auburn hair and a mustache. He spoke English fluently with a German accent. He was prone to laughing aimlessly, which led many to consider him a half-wit. Kate Bender was around 23, was cultivated and attractive and spoke English well, with little accent. A self-proclaimed healer and psychic, she distributed flyers advertising her supernatural powers and her ability to cure illnesses. She also conducted seances and gave lectures on spiritualism. When the Benders opened their store and inn in 1871, many travelers would stop for a meal or to gather supplies. However, some of these men who frequently carried large sums of cash with the intention of settling, buying stock, or purchasing claims began to go missing. It is conjectured that when a guest stayed at the Benders' bed and breakfast inn, the host would give the guest a seat of honor at the table that was positioned over a trapdoor into the cellar. With the victim's back to the curtain, Kate would distract the guest while John Bender or his son came from behind the curtain and struck the guest on the right side of the skull with a hammer. One of the women would cut the victim's throat to ensure death, and the body was then dropped through the trapdoor. Once in the cellar, the body would be stripped and later buried somewhere on the property, often in the orchard. Although some of the victims were wealthy, others carried little of value, and it was surmised that the Benders had killed them simply for their sheer thrill. As more time passed, the disappearances became more frequent, and by the spring of 1873, the region had become rife with rumors, as travelers began to avoid the trail. When neighboring communities started to make slanderous insinuations, the township called a meeting held at the Harmony Grove Schoolhouse in March to see what, if anything, could be done. About 75 people attended the gathering, including both Bender men. The discussion began regarding the 10 people who were reported missing, including a well-known independence physician named Dr. William H. York. With the full realization that there was a major problem in the township, the group decided to search every farmstead between Big Hill Creek and Drum Creek. The Benders remained silent when most of the attendees volunteered to have their premises searched. Sometime later, a neighbor of the Benders noticed that the Bender Inn was abandoned and their farm animals unfed. They reported the news to the township trustee, and a search party was soon formed, which included Dr. York's brother, Colonel A. M. York of Fort Scott. When the men arrived at the property, they found the cabin empty of food, clothing, and personal possessions. A terrible smell inside the abandoned inn also met them. A trapdoor, nailed shut, was discovered on the cabin floor. Prying it open, the men found a 6-foot deep hole filled with clotted blood, causing a terrible odor. However, there were no bodies in the hole. Finally, the men physically moved the entire cabin to the side and began to search beneath, but no bodies were found there either. Continuing, they began to dig around the cabin, especially in an area the Benders had utilized as a vegetable garden and orchard. At the site of the freshly stirred depression in the earth, they found the first body, buried head downward with its feet scarcely covered. The corpse was that of Dr. William H. York, his skull bludgeoned and his throat cut from ear to ear. The digging continued the next day. 9 other bodies and numerous dismembered body parts were found, including a woman and a little girl. The burial site was Christian Hell's half-acre, and another brother of Dr. York, a lawyer and state senator residing in Independence, offered a $1,000 reward for information, leading to the Bender family's arrest. On May 17th, Governor Thomas Osborne added to that amount by offering a $2,000 reward for the apprehension of all 4. Word of the gruesome murders spread fast, as thousands of people flocked to the sites, including news reporters from as far away as New York and Chicago. The Bender cabin was ripped apart by gruesome souvenir hunters right down to the bloody bricks that lined the cellar. Bit by bit, the story of the Benders was placed together. The diggers were astounded to find what would become known as one of America's first mass murder burial grounds, as body after body was uncovered. The manhunt for the Benders became a nationwide sensation. As the authorities closed in, the families fled, leaving behind a trail of evidence that would forever mark them as America's most notorious family of serial killers. Other bodies found in the garden were those of Henry Mackenzie's mutilated remains, 3 men by the name of Ben Brown, W.F. McCrutty, and John Geary, as well as an unidentified male and female. John Boyle's body was found in the well. Dismembered parts of several other victims were also discovered, but could never be identified. Four other bodies with crushed skulls and slit throats were also found outside the property, in Drum Creek and on the surrounding prairie. For all these deaths, the Benders gained only about $4,600, two teams of horses and wagons, a pony and a saddle. Because some of the travelers were carrying nothing of value, it was widely speculated that the Benders killed simply for the thrill of it. Detectives following wagon tracks discovered the Benders' wagon, abandoned with a starving team of horses, with one of the mares lame, just outside the city limits of Thale, 12 miles north of the inn. It was confirmed that the family had bought tickets at the Leavenworth, Lawrence and Galveston Railroad for Humboldt. At Chanute, John Jr. and Kate left the train and caught the MK&T train south to the terminus in Red River County, near Denison, Texas. Several groups of vigilantes were formed to search for the Benders. Many stories say that one vigilante group caught the Benders and shot all of them, but Kate, whom they burned alive. Another group claimed that they had caught the Benders and lynched them before throwing their bodies into the Verdigris River. Yet another claimed to have killed the Benders during a gunfight and buried their bodies on the prairie. But even despite all these details, no one ever claimed the $3,000 reward, which is about $73,000 in 2023. Bit well, must say. Though the tales of what happened to the Benders can only be speculative as to their accuracy, the fact that 10 bodies were found in the property is not disputed. Other corpses found in the area and many mysterious disappearances of other lonely travelers led to the locals to believe that the Benders killed more than 20 people. The sensational tales and rumors of the Benders continued well into the 20th century, but what happened to them remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. In the end, Bender's gruesome legacy serves as a warning both of the episode. The fact that the voice of crime can be heard anywhere. The story is a reminder that evil can exist anywhere, even within the confines of a seemingly very innocent family. And that's the bone-chilling story of the Bloody Benders, a family that will forever be remembered as America's most sinister serial killers. If you found this video as fascinatingly disturbing as we did, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more captivating tales of true crime, and of course ring the bell to get notified when we upload new content. This was my first time recording any kind of video, and this is the first time I have edited any sort of video on my own, so the work may be a bit choppy, but it is what it is. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, the voice of truth can be far more terrifying than fiction. Thank you.